What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the differences between round reels and low profile reels, and I'm going to be giving you guys examples of when I like to pick up a round reel instead of a low profile reel, or vice versa, the old switcheroo. So let's get right into today's video. So the very first reel that I want to talk about is going to be my Shimano Conquest 400. Now, as you guys can obviously see, this is a round reel, and honestly this is probably one of the best round reels out there on the entire market. This reel is such a beast. I've had it for, I want to say, about 2 years now, and it's been absolutely amazing for me in those 2 years. It's still super smooth, and I think I've only cleaned it myself like 2 or 3 times, and it's not even that detailed. But this reel is super badass. Shimano makes some amazing round reels, and this is no exception. Now, when it comes down to this reel, the reason why I even picked up this reel in the first place was to fish soft baits. The pros to this specific reel and the size of it is that, one, it's a 400 size reel, but this 400 size reel, as you guys can see, it fits in my hands fairly nicely for a 400 size reel. The 400 size reel, it has a pretty deep spool. I like to spool mine up with 20-pound fluorocarbon. It holds a lot of line. So a lot of times when I'm fishing these soft baits, I'll bomb a cast super deep out into like 60 foot. Every now and then I'll even long line, so where I'll fire a cast, get on the trolling motor, go another 30-40 yards down the bank, and then pick up the retrieve. So with this size of reel, you have that line capacity to be able to long line those soft baits during the winter time. And another plus, speaking on the soft baits, is when you make that cast down there, the bigger size reels like this one here, when you're reeling it, the inches per turn that you reel, it's always going to be the same, just because of the reel size and the spool size. So when I'm reeling it, I'm picking up the same amount of line when I make the cast way out there and when it gets all the way to the boat. So when you're doing that slow, steady retrieve like this, your bait's gonna constantly come at the same exact speed the entire way back to the boat. On some of these smaller reels, when you first make it out there, it's gonna pick up the line a little bit slower, but when you get closer to the boat, it's gonna be picking up line a lot faster. So your retrieve is gonna be different. So your bait might be going, and when you get closer to the boat, it picks up a little bit more speed with those smaller reels. So with the reel like this, your retrieve stays same, and with that, it just keeps your bait more down on the bottom. It stays in the strike zone a little bit longer as well. And sometimes those fish do just want a nice slow, steady retrieve, and they don't want anything that like picks up that looks a little bit different. So, because when you look at a trout, for the most part, it swims at the same speed. It doesn't pick up speed just randomly. So it's just nice constant retrieve. And so this is why I have this reel. Obviously it's a very expensive reel. It's $400+ wherever you find it. But honestly, before using this reel, I was using the Shimano Cardiff, the 300 size reel. Actually, I burned through 3 of the Cardiffs within about 2.5-3 years. So, and each one of those Cardiffs is about $110. So instead of going with the Cardiff, which the Shimano Cardiff is a great and fantastic reel for any beginners to even expert levels. I know Paul Bailey of the Bailey brothers, he still uses only Shimano Cardiffs. And honestly, if you just want the job done, the Cardiff will do just fine. And the thing that I was using my Cardiff with is that we'd beat the crap out of it. We'd fish it through like 1 or 2 seasons, really go hard on it. And then when the gears or whatever, when it started to pop off, or it just wasn't as smooth, or pieces were breaking and stuff on it, we would just throw it away, just because it's a cheaper reel, and when it comes down to our stuff, we beat it up a lot. And obviously the Cardiff doesn't have as much strength or durability as this reel, so we were just burning through them. We'd get our use out of them, throw them away, and just buy another one, just because they were pretty cheap. I mean, I think one of the ones that I bought was like $80, so you can find them pretty cheap out there. But after the Cardiff, I was like, all right, I want something that's gonna last me a very long time, that I can put through the work, and this is the reel that I have here. So this reel is mainly just used for soft baits Sometimes I'll use it if I'm throwing like a multi-piece bait. So I used to throw the Matt Lures, the Magnum Gill. It's a 8-inch segmented bait by Matt Lures, and I would fish that actually on this reel. There's a lot of thump to it. There's a lot of resistance to that bait. It thumps really hard in the water. And so with this reel, I was just able to just keep a nice steady retrieve on it. Nothing too fast, nothing too slow though. So I was using this reel for the Matt Lures back then. But for the most part, I'm just throwing soft baits on this reel here. All right, so next up that I like to use is my low profile reel. This is the Diode, the Z200. It's like a 7 or 8 year old reel right now. They came out a while back, but the technology in this reel by Diode makes it a badass reel. It is on the smaller side. It's pretty much a 200 size reel, but what's cool about this reel is that the gears in it almost match like a 300 size reel or a 400 size reel. There's a lot of drag on this reel, and this reel, Diode really made this reel for pitching and flipping heavy braid into heavy cover. So it's a smaller compact reel that was made to flip and like feel pretty good in the hands, but it has the power of like a 300, 400 size reel. So that's why a lot of people like to pick up the Z200 for big swim baits. And honestly, I absolutely love this reel. I've loved this reel for a very long time, and last year I was able to pick one up for a really good price, and I haven't looked back ever since. There have been problems in the past with the pinion gears on these Diodes. I've seen it firsthand on Alexa, but so far this reel has been absolutely amazing. I gave my reel to my buddy Tyler Turk, who does reel cleanings. He upgraded the bearings, and this thing is a beast now. It doesn't seem like it's 7 or 8 years old now. This thing bombs is 250 a mile or a clash a mile. So the pros of having the low profile reels is that it fits a lot easier in the hands. So with the round reel, you're kind of having to hold a little bit higher, but with the low profile, it fits in the hands a little bit nicer. You can jerk the bait, or you could twitch the rod a little bit smoother than you do on like the Calcutta. So the other day I was fishing the Clash 9 on the Calcutta, and after like, I don't know, 30 or 40 casts, I honestly started to feel it in my hand, because my hand's just trying to hold on to this big old reel, and it just didn't feel great. So then I switched to the K9 onto the rod that I had this reel on, and it just felt so much better. My hand wasn't cramping up, just because it's a lot easier to palm in the hand. So that's a big plus. So when it comes down to glide baits, I'm throwing low profile reels, just because I'm doing a lot of, wrist action. I'm moving the rod, I'm moving the reel at the same time. So something that's smaller and lighter like this, that fits in the hands, I think does a big number on whether or not you're going to be feeling a glide bait harder or not when it comes down to your hands. So my hand was definitely cramping up after throwing that Calcutta. So switch to this, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the downsides to the low profile reels, and it's not even really a downside to it, but normally they don't hold a lot of line. So when it comes down to like this specific reel here, I'm throwing, the Depth 250, the Clash 9, and like the HPH on this reel. And when I'm doing that, normally these casts are not, I'm bombing it in 60 foot and letting it sink down. No, these are normally just on the shorter to mid-range casts into accurate spots. So honestly, you don't even need that much line. So that's why I really like this reel overall. It holds not a lot of line at all, but for the application that I'm throwing these glide baits at, I don't need a whole lot of line. I'm just making, anywhere from 10-yard casts up to maybe 30-yard casts, just something, just real quick that I can just get a cast out to. So just remember that the low profile reels for the most part will not hold the same amount as like a round reel will. So this reel is only used for hard baits, and it does the job just perfectly well. Now, when it comes down to the low profile reels, not all of them are the same. So the low profile reels in recent years, a lot of them have become beefed up. Instead of the 200 size reel being the biggest, they now make a lot of selections of 300 to 400 size reel. So a lot of those low profile reels, those even like the 200 size reel, like this thing, on most reels the drag, the gears, they're not as good or as well built as in this reel here. Like I said, this specific reel, the Z200, was made specifically for fishing heavy cover, heavy braid, and catching big fish out of thick stuff. So the gears are big on this 200 size reel. Now, on most of them, they're gonna be really small, and when you throw these big baits and you're doing all this work on a smaller reel, like 100 to 150 to 200 size reel, on most of them, those gears will get way worn down more, just because those gears aren't made to be throwing big baits and just the constant bashing of hooking into fish and all that stuff. They're not made for that. So a lot of times when I see people using the 100 to 200 size reel, and it's not like a Z200 or anything that's specific like that, I'm like, yo, I wouldn't do that, because you're gonna blow out your reel eventually. Not obviously in the beginning, it'll be fine, but eventually you'll start to see it, you'll start to feel it in the reel. They're just not made for that. So what's cool is in recent years they've been making 300 and 400 size low profile reels. This is the Shimano Conquest 400. It's the faster gear ratio reel. This reel is super sick. For a 400 size low profile reel, it fits absolutely amazing in the hands. I love the way that it feels. So it's honestly a combination of the Calcutta Conquest 400 and the Diode Z200. It's pretty much a mix of both. Low profile reel, but it holds a lot of line and it feels great in the hands, but you feel like you have the power that you do in like the Calcutta. So overall, this low profile reel is super sick. I pretty much use this reel for my bigger grade swim baits. So like the Roman Maid Mother, or the Hinkle Trout, or the Clash Ghost, or you know, the 11-inch soft tools, like big stuff that I like to work fast. So I got the higher gear ratio reel for it. And so what's cool though is that they do make these reels in lower gear ratios. So I know that they make a 5:1 gear ratio. If you want a low profile reel that holds a lot of line, if you want to fish soft baits on a low profile reel instead of like a round reel, they do make that nowadays. So these are what I use. Hopefully it gives you guys a better understanding that are kind of getting into swim bait fishing on, yo, should I get a low profile reel? Should I get a faster reel? Should I get such and such and such? Hopefully that helps you guys, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.